Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hearth of Britannia. I'm Rustic Dragon, and this is another Hearth of Britannia Dragonsmeet. A big thank you to everybody out there watching in YouTube land, and to my Patreon backers. Thank you for being awesome. And anybody who's ever bitched at me during the 2-year hiatus to do this again, thank you. It is much appreciated. Today we are going to be talking about our Dragonly discussion topic. We're actually having 2 Dragonly discussions. We're going to continue our meditation on the virtues. Today we're going to be talking about valor, and then after that we're going to be talking about what makes an Ultima open world gaming edition, which is kind of a beaten to death topic, but while spam humbug totally beat me to this topic, we'll be talking a little bit about Breath of the Wild because it's really brought up the conversation of open world gaming. A lot of people hearing about open world gaming for the first time, so we're going to be talking about that. But that is for the next few moments. In the meantime, excuse me, let's take a moment to introduce who's in the Hangout. We've got 2 people. Houston, would you like to say hello?
Hello. You want me to introduce myself?
Yes, please.
Okay, Houston Dragon, John Hosey, a longtime Ultima fan and patron backer of the Hearth. So there you go.
Excellent. And thank you for your patronage. Commander of the Beard.
Sup, bruh? Second commander. God damn, Frank. Jesus Christ, I haven't seen you in a while.
Wow.
Not so...
David, you're no longer Beard Commander. Frank.
I mean, yeah, no more. Like, I keep mine trimmed and nice, but my God, man, you look nautical as hell. Hey, anyway, I'm Jotun.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's enough of me. Let's talk to Frank.
All right. Frank, it's good to have you here. Uh-oh, you're muted. Now you're unmuted. And now I can't see you.
It figures.
Oh, we can hear you. Try hitting that camera button again at the top. Maybe, maybe not. Well, Frank, we were introducing ourselves. Do you want to take a moment to say hi and introduce yourself? Since you've been having trouble getting in for a long time, so it's good to have you here. Or not. Okay, well, it's good to have you here. You can introduce yourself when you're ready, I suppose. Yay, it's Adam. Hey, Adam, would you like to say hello to everybody?
Hello to everybody.
That works. All right. I heard you worked from home today and we're excited about participating, so that's fantastic.
It is all true.
I'm glad to have you here. So, you know what? Let's just jump right in. David, are you excited to talk about valor?
Fuck yeah.
Okay. All right. So the first question, generally when we talk about virtues here at the Hearth, we tend to talk about what it is in Ultima context and then kind of go out from there. So we start with the most literal definition in terms of Ultima. So valor, this is actually the first time that I don't have a lot of prepared notes. So I don't have a giant speech to give about valor to start out, which is great because there's people here this time. Had this happened last time, I would have picked my nose or something. But I'll start out by our first question really is, how's valor different from courage? And I'm going to give my thoughts on that and then hear what your thoughts are. So strictly speaking, in the Venn diagram that is the system of virtues, truth, love, and courage, and all that fun, wonderful, fun stuff from Ultima, valor is derived from courage alone. Therefore, valor is courage, courage is valor. But, valor, of course, is distilled courage. It's like you crystallize it, you compress it. And, courage, as you know, also encompasses sacrifice and honor. So valor doesn't necessarily, valor is not a part of courage or sacrifice, and valor is not a part of honor, but courage is. So it's interesting to think about drawing a distinction between being courageous and being valiant, similar to drawing a distinction between being compassionate and loving and being truthful and honest. That's capital T truth, as Lord British likes to say. But it's interesting to talk about. I wanted to pull up the distinction there. So, when we talk about valor specifically, we should be careful at least in ultimate terms, not to find ourselves leaking over into sacrifice or honor. That's for courage. But if we do, then hey, that's fun discussion. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? And of course, the other follow-up questions that we have is, how does valor differ from courage? Which actually is just what I said. How does valor conflict with humility? So, how does everything conflict with humility? That's a really fun question, right? But I think valor is one of the more difficult ones to balance with humility. If someone challenges me to a fight, and if I say no, does that make me afraid? Am I just being humble? If I could beat the guy's ass? Those are good questions, like, honesty versus valor. And of course, what is valor to you, and what does it mean to be valiant? And when is it okay not to be valiant? So any of these questions are on the board. Whoever wants to jump in, please do.
Well, I mean, you made a pretty good point on like trying not to seep valor into like sacrifice or honor or any of that stuff, because well, then you're cheating. Because valor is by itself, it stemmed from courage. Valor is like as you said, purified courage, I guess, in a way. But like my basic definition is like valor is the instinct to take control and to push back when pushed, and to stand up and fight. That's just straight up valor to me. If you try to fight for a reason besides yourself, then you're tapping into honor, or you're tapping into sacrifice, or you're tapping even into like compassion and stuff like that. So, as you said, by itself, valor is just an instinct to fight, at least to me.
Seth ruined it. I was going to comment that I loved the fact that 3 out of 4 of us have weapons in the background of our online persona here, and then the ratio got skewed.
Sorry, be right back.
He'll fix
There we
that.
go.
Don't you worry.
I mean, we have enough swords for him.
That's true.
He had a sword in the corner of his screen there.
Well, welcome, Phoenix, whenever you get back. It's nice to have you here. So yeah, David, that's interesting. So whereas I was able to kind of pare away what valor isn't, you were actually able to talk about what valor is, which is nice, because I wasn't able to do that. I have never really had I think this may be the first time in my life that I've even had a discussion about valor, much less any type of deep meditation on it. So this is fantastic for me.
Oh, actually,
Hey,
it occurs to me that, right over there, I don't know if you can see it in frame, but
We
the
can.
sword. But yeah, I brought more. Put that there.
That's a flintlock pistol. I don't know if that. Okay.
Another sword. Because
Oh shit! Give me a second. Let me get some more swords.
Oh, this is fantastic. All right.
an orange
Unlock
ring.
that chest.
Everybody put it on the table. I'll get the measuring tape. Welcome back, Frank, by the way. Your video looks fantastic. I think you mentioned you got a new webcam, but your lighting and everything is really crystal clear. It's very nice.
Really?
Yeah, you look
Can
great.
you hear me?
Yep.
Good. Well, I don't know how it could look so good with them in it.
Hey, give yourself some credit. David and I were fawning over how nice your beard is. You have like the most amazing admiral's seaman's beard right now.
Yeah, he does. It's a beautiful beard. More swords.
Yay! All right. So actually, if we could take a moment, Seth and Frank, would you like to say hi to everybody, since Frank's finally connected stably and Seth just got here?
Well, hi guys. It's been a long time. I know most of you. I haven't met John yet, but I will very soon. Thankfully, in the Silver Serpent Festival. I can't wait. I'm giddy, and finally got all my stuff set up. I thought I had it before I came on, and then I was on, and of course I had to redo something. So yeah, I haven't trimmed my beard since my dad's funeral back in July, and I will soon, but just a little. my mustache is a little crooked, and I will fix that. But
That's character, man.
Character, exactly. But I'm glad to see you all, and I'm glad to be here. Miss you.
Well, definitely glad to see you here and finally having the technical difficulties taken care of. I know that was difficult for a while, but at least we got to practice in the offline hangouts for that.
Hey, I know everybody but Frank. And I'm sad that I won't be making it to Festival of the Silver Serpent.
Oh.
You're not going, Seth.
The Hobloth.
Yeah, I actually have a child due like on the same day that Festival of the Silver Serpent is. So I think my wife would be a tad upset if I just, went traipsing across the country instead of hanging out with her.
I can't even tell. Very well.
Yeah, well, Seth, maybe I'll see you at the Hobloth 4. I met you at Hobloth 2. We had a great time, so we'll see you next time.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Maybe it's the beard. I don't recognize you.
Well, wait. There.
Yes.
It's the hat.
Yes. I recognize you now.
That's all it takes.
But yes, I do plan on making it to Hobloth 4.
Excellent. Well, speaking of Hobloth 4, no, we're not going down that rabbit hole. So jumping back to the topic at hand, and I guess if we run out of things to say, I suppose we can jump down that rabbit hole. But jumping back to the topic at hand, did anybody have any thoughts, about more on anything dealing with Valor?
In the Ultimas, and I feel like Valor, rather than being like distilled courage, is just the parts of courage that don't need anything else, which may be a different way of saying the same thing, but it might not. In the games, Valor is very martial focused. Valor is actually going out and beating up things that deserve to get beaten up. I've been thinking about the virtues a lot lately. I started listening to Withstand the Fury's bite-sized virtues stuff and went back and listened to the previous 2 hangouts here, because I'm considering writing something up about them and considering trying to create a virtue system for future Dark Unknown games. And I feel like Valor is kind of the least of the virtues, and so I was looking forward to coming here to seeing if people could convince me otherwise.
Actually, I would jump in a little bit on that. It's interesting because Joseph Drazen had done in Hobloth 3 some meditation on the virtues, and of course, part of the Dragonsmeet was the discussion of how it fits into everybody's real life settings. Valor is a tough one because, like you said, it is very martial. It is in the games pretty much go out and kill the bad guys and don't run away. On a personal level, I would say it's more dealing with your personal struggles and your challenges in life, not backing down from the things that arise. You don't want to go into honor, don't want to go into sacrifice, but really kind of being able to face those challenges and deal with them. And also being humble enough to recognize at the times that sometimes those challenges, maybe the best route is not going up and directly getting in their face and fighting them, but trying to find a different method around it. But that's my view anyways.
So whereas Adam's strict ultimate definition of Valor is, external forces, you're also expanding that to deal with internal forces too. I think what's interesting is, at least in terms of the simulation, the easiest way probably to deal with Valor is the combat, the Ultima 4 approach. It's probably, I think Richard may not have wanted to deal with internal Valor just because he had enough internal things with all the other virtues to deal with, which might lead to why Adam feels that Valor is kind of the least of the virtues, and certainly why we all rarely meditate on it. But yeah, I think that's where where it kind of comes back to courage and then bleeds into the other things. That courage to admit something to sacrifice, to that courage to, interestingly enough, we talk about, where you have honesty. And when I went on this giant rant about honesty, I talked a lot about having the courage to be truthful. Like that you need to have some courage. You need to accept some things inside. You need to, really admit when you're wrong or something, which just naturally, bleeds into honor, which is the way it works. But that's an interesting question then. So my question to you would be, can you think of internal struggles that are purely valor and not tainted, not mixed with, truth or love? As is there an internal struggle that really is purely valor as opposed to, leaking into honor or sacrifice?
Maybe taking a moment, like if you were looking at a new job opportunity and dealing with your, if you're afraid of the opportunity or afraid of the change in your life, having to address that moment for yourself, especially dealing with emotions. And again, not getting into love necessarily, but again, dealing with personal relationships with people, whether it's business, personal, or whatever else. Sometimes you don't want to offend a person. Sometimes you don't want to step up and speak up for yourself. And sometimes you have to be valorous and do that to make sure that you are, taking care of your own responsibilities as well.
Sure. The example that comes to mind for me is, possibly dealing with an injury or a sickness, something that only you can struggle with, which then very quickly starts to lead to bearing the brunt of that, so your family members don't have to, which lends itself very naturally into sacrifice. Adam, you said you're happy to elaborate when there's a dead moment.
About my comment of it being the least of the virtues. One thing that I thought as John was giving his list is some of these internal things. If having the courage to face a change or a new job opportunity, that's a good thing to have in life. Is it a virtue? Is it a virtue of you that you're able to do that? For me, the more I thought about it, started to think that courage was foundational, that on its own, it's not important for there to be courage for there being courage, but it's important to have courage to do the other things. You talked about having the courage to be honest and such. And so I thought of the various other virtues. It doesn't do you a lot of good to be just if you're not courageous enough to go and actually pursue that justice, etc. So I started feeling like it kind of sits there as a foundation for the other ones to rest on, but that I didn't see a lot that was necessarily a virtue that comes just out of it. So that's where I'm quite happy to be talked out of this, because
I think that's interesting, right? We always think of the virtues as this Venn diagram, or think of the Maslow's hierarchy of virtue. That's a totally great model.
Well, and it's a model that I'm considering trying to implement if I do virtue in Dark Unknown 2 or something. Is I'm starting to build like this tree. But that's still in the very, very early thoughts.
Along those lines, I can imagine, if courage is the trunk of this tree, okay, I'm learning to be courageous. Now I learn how to be courageous with honesty, and now I learn how to be courageous with justice. And each one of those is harder because it's more complicated. But that's almost just like life. Like it's one thing. It's easy to be there's sometimes where it's easy to be courageous, where it's easy to have valor, right? You're backed up against a corner. You don't have a choice. Well, fight. It's harder when there's moral ambiguity. It's harder when there's not adrenaline pumping. That's a really interesting thing. I really like the idea of, going from that Venn diagram to the foundational. That's, like I said, I would totally play that. That seems really cool. I wonder what Richard thinks of that. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
I guess like my other point on that would be, I guess valor is just to simply push yourself. I mean, courage is stemmed with sacrifice and spirituality and honor and all that stuff. But yeah, just valor is just straight up just push yourself. I guess that's the only thing I can think of.
It's the fuel in the tank.
That.
Well, I think, you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure. I haven't actually been in one where I can see my face and all this other stuff to see if it works. But yeah, I look at valor as more of not a physical thing. It's just as a and showing the courage and to do something that you know that like I have trouble with speaking with a bunch of people online, and I'm going finding the courage to act on that. Now it'd be the same thing to see now I lost my train of thought. I was happy with my train of thought before, but I think it's more of a as using your inner courage to do something. It's showing valor. I don't think one's more important than the other, but they're intertwined, and valor can be showing you humility and stepping down and let that guy take credit for something that he didn't really do, but without it he will be let down to be a lower, like a looked down upon badly.
I think I would agree with that. I really, I think for everyone out there who is really influenced by Ultima 4 and says things like, Ultima 4 influenced my life, and there had been times where I was at an impasse and I thought about the virtues and it made me do the right thing and things like that. While I did say earlier that I've never really had a meditation on the virtues, I think there have been times in my life where I've been afraid of something and I just said I need to gain my 8th in valor. A case in point was running off a 1,500-foot mountain with a kite strapped to my back. If that didn't get my 8th, I don't know what does. And I sure as hell lost the 8th the first time I tried it and backed off and went, I don't want to do this. So yeah. But yeah, so that's an interesting thing there, right? So generally, I'm trying to think if there's an exception. Being valiant, showing valor is an act. It is something. It is almost by definition something. Almost it's an accomplishment. It's overcoming something. It's something worthy of bragging about. So you have this wonderful growth. You muster up the valor to do something. You take that jump. You do that fight. You overcome that fear, and then humility says you shouldn't brag about it. And then it becomes very difficult. How do you talk about it without, how can you talk about your deeds while still being humble, which is, probably seeping into the inevitable conversation about humility and how the hell you say you did anything and still maintain humility, which will be an interesting conversation. But related to valor, how do you talk about valor and keep it reined in with humility? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Bueller?
I guess it's that whole actions speak louder than words sort of thing, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know if any of you read the Lynn Abbey books, but in those, the nobles are all trying to follow the path of the Avatar, and it's very easy for them to get the valor 8th, but only one, if I remember correctly, only one noble has the humility 8th.
Yeah, and as I remember, he gave away all the gems on his medallion as a sign of that to buy food for people that were homeless or whatever. And yeah.
Well, those books are, when I got a hold of those finally in circa 2010, 2009, I literally read them in 24 hours. Like I've never done this in my life. I started reading and I didn't stop until I had finished. And sometime with the second book, I did stop to sleep. But as soon as I woke up, I continued reading. I've never done that in my life. So unfortunately, that also means I don't remember them very well. But if I recall, there was one person who had completed 7/8, and humility was the one that he was never able to get.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that makes sense.
Well, by showing the compassion and giving away the gems from that necklace, that was in itself a valorous act. It's a result of valor from different acts. Like I was saying about being humility and stepping down, not taking credit for something someone else didn't do, but he's by right lawfully he didn't do it, but by he's looked upon as a less of a person and maybe just a bad person if you don't.
Yeah.
I would also
having to deal with that, sorry, John, having to deal with the repercussions of not appearing as wealthy and the social stigma that comes with that. It takes courage to show that humility. It takes valor, which really comes back to it reinforces Adam's point as courage as a baseline, as a support. So maybe you're looking for an alternative solution to that, Adam, but I think we're just reinforcing your thesis here. I like that. I like I said, I dig it. John, you were going to say something?
I actually do. I was going to say I do like Adam's idea too, where it is kind of the base, and then you have truth and love, branching out of it. Kind of the point, the earlier question though about how you show valor without necessarily, damaging humility. Again, it can be something as simple when you stand up for somebody else. You see an injustice in the world and you stand up for it, or you see a wrong that needs righting. You donate to a cause or whatever. You just don't brag about it. You don't pound your chest and look for the laurels on it. It's just something that you do because you're trying to be virtuous at that particular moment in time. Like I said, for myself, most people don't go out with a sword and bash people over the head unless they're going to justice events. So it's not as much a martial thing that most people get a chance to do that maybe like David or Adam get to do as much.
Headshots are illegal.
Headshots are illegal. And no throwing the flag. But, it's just, again, most of for myself personally and most of the people that I've ever talked with dealing with the virtues, valor tends to be a very internal virtue for most people. I mean, going back to Frank's point about doing things that scare you. There were tons of people at the Bash. There were tons of people that came to Hobloth. There were tons of people I've met at DragonCon that are just so scared sometimes of rejection of am I going to fit in? Are people going to am I going to have fun? Am I going to meet people I like? And it's like it's such a great thing to see them overcome that and recognize the particular value or enjoyment that they have on it. And I do think that's a valorous act. I do think that's something that they can at least take pride in. And pride is not a virtue, but again, they can get the sense of accomplishment of having done that. And it can be something as small as Frank coming online and talking with the group and overcoming that fear to you jumping off a mountain with a piece of cloth tied to your back. I mean, every bit counts.
Now I want a cloth map hang glider.
That would be awesome.
So totally, if anybody has a response to that, please jump in. But I'm actually going to talk about something that's related, but just something that totally popped in my head. Thinking about designing systems, this might be relevant to Adam. Frank, you were talking about, being afraid, not showing valor. And I think, what has caused me to not show valor in the past? And, I think anxiety, right? Well, so you've got Ultima 5 that talks about all these opposites to the virtue. Each dungeon is the opposite of a virtue. And then Ultima 5 is what happens when you apply one of the virtues in a bad way. And, you've got you've got falsehood and cowardice and all the opposite principles that the Shadow Lords represent. But I was thinking, so that's cool. You've got the opposite, for your system design, but it'd be interesting if there was a condition or a status effect or an affliction that would prevent you from being able to excel on that. And I'm thinking, okay, anxiety is real. That would prevent you from dealing with, having valor. If someone who's a pathological liar obviously isn't going to excel in truth. If someone's a sociopath, they're probably going to have trouble with compassion. And I'm just wondering, is there a genuine affliction that would affect discreetly each virtue? It's just a If you have Trump disease, you can't have humility. I'm sorry, narcissism. You can't have humility. It's interesting. It's just something that I'm considering. Like, what would prevent justice? If you're really selfish, I don't know. There's not a selfish disease for sacrifice. These are just an interesting thought. Always trying to think of ways to expand systems for gameplay.
Interesting.
If you have, an STD from Chloe, you can't. Come on, David, say something.
I'm pretty clean. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think David's pretty clean. David thinks that farts are dirty. So I mean, David is a clean.
But I'm kind of oxymoronic on that because like you could hear my farts through a brick wall. So
just because you can hear them through a brick wall doesn't mean that they're not contained within the porcelain. At least for better or worse. See, I really wish you could go to the International Space Station and you could have a pooping in space story, because I'm sure it would be very, very different than Richard's story.
It'd be horrible.
Like, they have to install extra handles for you or something so you can hold on.
Or like they'd use my, fart propulsion as like a backup.
Man, you need an Easter egg in Faster Than Light. Someone needs to be able to buy the Chloe cannons that,
I don't know, Joseph, you could probably use farts as a propulsion device in the space station. Because last time, well, it was the first Hoblob. You're pretty gaseous at that one.
I do my best. I do try. I think Hoblob 4 need to have a nice big bowl of bean soup available at the tavern. What do you guys think about that? We should have a fart lighting contest.
Yeah, definitely get a waiver for that.
Yeah, there's a specific waiver just for lighting farts. I am the Hearth of Britannia and Lord British and Castleton and Portalarium and everybody who may be remotely involved take no responsibility, and anybody who singes every hair off their knuckles.
Like, isn't flax more flammable than cotton?
I'm not sure. I guess
It's something to test out because we got to go ahead and go with period clothing. Got flax clothing. Yeah, something to worry about.
Yeah, and it'll be winter, so people probably won't be wearing linen. Well, it'll be late fall, won't quite winter yet, but still, it might be cold. That's an important question. And Seth is like, what did I come back to?
It'll be cold just for Hoblob that week.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure the weather for Hobloth will be absolutely miserable, just because that is the way things go.
It's not a Dragonsmeet if there isn't fart talk.
Well, right. So, but that being said, trying to bring this back onto some sort of topic, it's interesting how I could talk for an hour about honesty, and I could talk, we could talk for an hour about compassion, but we've really bled valor dry in less than 30 minutes. That's really interesting. It seems to be really clear cut. There doesn't seem to be a lot of moral issues, moral dilemmas here. Because, if you really distill it down to valor, you can start getting into philosophical questions like, if someone is doing wrong to me and I stand up to him, that takes courage. But if I just deal with it, that also takes courage, right? So it's like, you could sort of argue that, but then if you really stretch it, then some of those definitions can start leaking into other virtues again, so you can rule them out. I think valor really is clear-cut. It may be the single most clear-cut virtue. Can you think of one that's more clear-cut than valor? Well, fuck it. Let's adjourn it. So we have a choice. We've got 5 people in the Hangout with me. Hi, 5 people in the Hangout with me. We got a choice, and I'll leave it up to you guys. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have not said this. Hey, everybody out there in Uterus Tube Land. If you're watching this and you want to participate and you can't come in because you don't have the hardware, you don't want to be seen on camera, blippity bloppity bloppity blue, actually, we have 0 viewers right now, so no one's out there in YouTube land. Those of you that may or may not be watching this later, if you have a question, if you have a thought, rusticdragon@gmail.com. Please send me an email. I do not read comments. I don't read the live chat. I just don't check those things. rusticdragon@gmail.com. If you have a thought, send me an email. I'll read it on air, or I'll read it the next time around. If you're watching a Dragonsmeet from 3 years ago, rusticdragon@gmail.com. Send me a comment. We'll loop back and talk about it. There's nothing wrong with that. So back to the topic at hand. We had a choice. We can either jump into open world gaming and talk about Breath of the Wild early, or we can talk about something else if you guys like.
I like
Possibly.
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild. We want Untamed Tit. Legend of
Untamed
Zelda Untamed Tit.
Yep.
Okay.
Joseph, I really did enjoy last week's Hobloth, or the last Hobloth. I'm not Hobloth. I mean Dragonsmeet. Sorry. You and Joe were at it, and I watched the whole time and working on my computer. I enjoyed it.
It was fantastic. Joe saved the day last week. I'm really glad he came in, mostly because I haven't had a chance to talk to Joe lately. We've both been really busy, and then after we went off air, we continued to talk, well into the night or into the evening, as we're wont to do. But thank you for saying that. I was really nervous about last week. I felt naked. I felt a little exposed. It was the first time that no one had showed up for a Dragonsmeet. So I'm really glad that people enjoyed it. Adam, I appreciated your comments too about how you watched all of that. But really, that's not me. That's totally Joe Garrity. So, Joe Garrity saves the day, and I'm very thankful for Joe coming in. But thank you for saying that. So yeah, we could talk about the event. We could talk about plans for the event. We can talk about forums at the Hearth of Britannia, potentially. We can talk about anything, or we can jump right into Breath of the Wild. I heard 2 people want to talk about Breath of the Wild so far. I think there was 2 votes for that.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, that's fair. And
Zelda.
That's okay. We will bring you up to speed. Since that's the only thing that anybody's mentioned, if there aren't any objections, let's go ahead and jump into open world gaming. Okay, man, you can hear my breathing today. I need my inhaler. I am ever so slightly asthmatic today. That's fantastic. I did some running to catch the bus, which was fantastically hilarious. I've never been this out of shape in my life. And while, I have 2 options. I can cry myself to sleep overnight, or I can really laugh at it as I imagine my fat ass running for the bus. I'm trying to laugh at myself and enjoy it, as opposed to, looking in the mirror and being sad. But anyway, so I have to make the Body by Hobloth videos for Hobloth 4, so hopefully that will inspire me to get moving. Or at least I'll get a little exercise making them. Body by Hobloth, wait, what's that? You'll find out. Okay, so Frank, to bring you up to speed, Breath of the Wild is the latest installment of the Legend of Zelda series, which, as you may or may not know, it's been around since most of us. So it's older than David. It's not older than me, thankfully. And David's the youngest, so let's all pinch David's cheeks. But yeah, the latest installment is Breath of the Wild. Is released for both the Wii and the Switch. It was kind of the reason that pretty much everybody bought a Switch. I'd be hard pressed to imagine anybody bought a Switch for anything else at this point. But the key thing about Breath of the Wild is that it is Legend of Zelda's first genuinely, and I haven't played it, so I'm basing things that I've read, basing this off of things that I've read. It's the first genuinely open world Zelda that there has been. A lot of the other Zeldas seem open worldy, but they're still a little bit closed. If you guys have thoughts on that, you want to argue with me, that's cool. I am totally open. I can play the first Legend of Zelda with my eyes closed. I love Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. I think all of the 2D Zeldas are the, God's gift to gaming, second only to Ultima. But I never really cared much for the 3D Zeldas. I just don't like making a lot of jumps to 3D in general. But yeah, so we're going to talk about, the reason that we're going to talk about this is there's a lot of people out there that are saying, oh my God, look at all the things that Breath of the Wild does. This is so cool. This is the greatest game in history. But Ultima 6 and 7 have been doing that, for almost 30 years. So, and there's a lot of people drawing those conclusions. While it's great that a lot of gamers that are young are like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing on the planet, because it really is. Open world gaming is the greatest thing on the planet. Single player, offline, open world gaming, yes, give it to me. Give me more of it. Give me all you got. But, us old people are kind of like, hey, this isn't the first time they did it. It's like when Metallica did a cover of Turn the Page by Bob Seger, and there's people writing articles on their blog saying, when Metallica wrote this song, they were thinking this, this, and this. I'm like, you fucking asshole. So there's a lot of that going on right now. A lot of people upset because they're giving Breath of the Wild a lot of credit for doing things the first time when they really haven't done it the first time. And that happens. That's life. But yeah, we're here to talk about open world gaming. We're here to talk about Breath of the Wild. David, I know you've played it, so I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Please talk about it. Go nuts. Bring up videos, bring up evidence, do all those things that you do when you get excited.
Oh, okay. Shit. All right. Well, I'm not going to bring up evidence. I'll just talk about it. But no, as you mentioned, other games have done it before. But Zelda actually, Breath of the Wild actually just does a good job of presenting it, I guess. Make it more easily digestible. The only issues I do have are some of the motion controls and handling the magnetic tool when you're trying to aim something above something and the camera gets retarded. But besides that, it applies common sense to the open world genre. You play games like Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind or the other 3D open world games. Even though it's open world, it just feels like you're just like a walking simulator where you're just hitting things or shooting magic at stuff. Whereas in at least Breath of the Wild, you have tools. You have all these tools given to you within the first hour of the game that you can just do. You can you have infinite bombs. You can just chunk them. You have an axe. You see a tree. Okay, you see a whole bunch of bokoblins down the hill. So you chop the tree in half, let it fall down. You light the tree on fire. Now you have a flaming log. I roll down the log that's on fire, kills all the bokoblins while lighting the whole field of grass on fire. While the field of grass on fire makes an updraft. I use the updraft to go into the next valley where there's a giant rock. I use a stasis ability. I hit it a whole bunch of times until it gains all this kinetic energy. Jump on it. It shoots off across the world. It hits another group of bokoblins and you just blow their entire base to smithereens. It's just it just does an excellent job of giving you tools and letting you apply a little bit of common sense and a little bit of discovery, and it does a really good job of pacing that. Like when I'm fighting a group of monsters and there's like a choo-choo, those little jelly monsters, they're just, yeah, okay. Just sounds like your bedroom escapades. Yeah. I'm fighting a whole bunch of, bokoblins, a big boss, and I kill a choo-choo. The choo-choo actually drops down it was an electrical one, so it drops down the electrical materials. Well, those materials, they aren't just icons in the ground. They still they exist in the world. I accidentally shot it. I realized that even though it's an electrical guts, it still shocked the enemies around it. So I started tossing that all over the place and started using that as traps. It again, it does a good job of. It's not the first to do this, but it does a good job of showing you, hey, these are these very creative things you can do on accident. And yeah, I mean, there's not too many games where after you leave the tutorial area, within 3 minutes, you can fight the final boss if you wanted. So that's also a plus.
Is he a bokoblin?
Is he a bokoblin?
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say, so one of the things that's kind of bothered me I mentioned a moment ago that I don't like 3D. I generally didn't like it when games transition from 2D to 3D. And the reason was they always took a huge step back in something to do that. They sacrificed tightness, control, clarity, depth, something to take that initial jump to 3D. And I feel like we've been catching up ever since. Ultima 6 and 7 were among the best world simulations ever. For games, and in many respects, games still haven't quite reached the level of simulation that you have in Ultima 7, which is older than David. I know it's not. I don't know. It might be.
Let's look that up.
But I'm starting to wonder, is Breath of the Wild the first time that those wonderful simulation style sandboxy elements have reached a level that's even worthy of being compared to Ultima? I don't like to compare Skyrim to Ultima, because it's an open world game, but it's not a world sim. You can't, you can go up to the forge and craft, but you got this menu, right? You don't learn to craft by watching. If you've ever tried to place an item on a shelf in Skyrim, it's not Ultima 7. And there are a few games out there, while they may be immersive, they may be beautiful, they may be detailed as fuck, they're not really great sandboxy, physics-based, there's not a lot of happy accidents that you can have. And I wonder if it's possible that Breath of the Wild may be the very first 3D game that's worthy of being compared to an Ultima. What do you think about that?
Well, one of the other things that they also did when they developed the game, at least one of their design videos that they had, was what they called themselves is they wanted to add a chemistry system into the game. Basically, have materials react with another material if there's like different stasises to things. So this active discovery, everything has rules, and you just discover them on your own. Oh, by the way, I was 2 years old not even 2 when Ultima 7 came out. So
next time I play Ultima 7 and change a diaper on a baby, I'm going to imagine.
Baby.
I definitely want to jump in on this conversation.
Please do.
And it's funny that we're mentioning Zelda, because, again, Link, Triforce of Courage is his thing. Basically, it's a phenomenal game. I bought a Wii U myself, mainly to play older games and specifically to play Breath of the Wild. It is, like you said, most of the systems are stuff that have been around. I mean, it's nothing new in the gaming genre. They just tied it all together so damn well. For a 3D world, number one, it's a beautiful game. I mean, just graphically, it's gorgeous. It is a full 3D environment. You can climb, you can jump, you can hang glide, you can, as David said, you get an initial tutorial in the first hour in this little bitty zone that gives you a bunch of abilities, and then it basically goes, okay, go save the world. And that's all it tells you. Like, there is no hand-holding in this game, which I think is phenomenal. You're given a couple of markers to go talk to certain people for the main quest. But honestly, the world, first of all, is enormous. It's a gigantic world. If you've ever played like the Assassin's Creed games where you climb up on the tower and you synchronize and you see your map, you have that kind of ability in the game. But instead of actually identifying and immediately pointing, hey, go over here and find this and go over here and do this, it doesn't do that. It just opens up the map, and at that point, you're just like, oh shit, it's a big world. What do I do? And the amount of exploration, like I'm right now on the 4th major quest. I'm almost done with the game. But I literally spent a week and a half just exploring the world, just running around and getting all the towers and finding all the shrines and finding all the nooks and crannies. And it was awesome. Like David said, you can get into a fight where you're completely outmatched. Like, you cannot run up and just start wailing on monsters. Like, you'll die in the first 5 seconds, and you die a lot in this game. And you have to kind of think about it for a minute. Like, if you see a monster up ahead and he's got a bow, you got to figure out, okay, what's the best way to run up and kind of dodge and zigzag and make sure I don't get shot? If you're in a rainstorm, for example, and there's thunder and lightning, if you're carrying metal weapons, you will get electrocuted because a giant bolt of lightning will come down and fry your ass on the spot. And you can actually use that to your effect. Like, if you see your weapon start sparking, you can turn around and throw a metal weapon at your enemy and electrocute his ass. You can throw, you can use shock arrows, you can throw bombs, you can throw fire, like David said. It's a tremendous amount of ingenuity that lets you just kind of do whatever you want to do, and the game reacts to it accordingly. Going back to like Ultima 6 and Ultima 7, one of the things this game does that I really enjoy is, for example, there are actual character schedules. Like, there's a morning, noon, and night. There is times where the NPCs go to bed and they're asleep. They're not going to deal with you. They're not going to sell to you. They're not going to talk to you. There's a Easter egg in the game where if you take off all of Link's clothes and you go up and talk to an NPC, they freak out at you and go, what the hell is wrong with you? Where's all your clothes? Like, for example, if it starts thundering and storming outside of a building, the NPCs will get up and walk outside. The fire outside will go out because there's water raining on it, and you can't go back out and relight your fire. You know, the surfaces of the mountains and things you can't climb up because they become slick and they'll literally slide you off. Plus, there's a tremendous amount of puzzles. I mean, the game itself, as David said, you can run straight to the end boss. You'll get your ass kicked, but you can do it if you really, really want to. But there's so many other puzzles that they put in this game where, you know, you're going to shrines and you're getting power-ups and you're getting things that'll help, you know, increase your health and increase your stamina. And there's everything from using magnesis to using stasis to using, darkness puzzles where you're having to light a torch and wind your way through a little maze and figure out where you have to go. And it's just, I love it. I mean, the amount of open world exploration is just phenomenal. And the simple fact that if you do not want to do the main quest, it is literally Breath of Skyrim. Like, you get to go out and do whatever the hell you want to do. The crafting system, as Joseph pointed out, for example, in most games, you walk up, I want to forge a sword, and you go through the little menu and steel and sword and short sword, and it's boring. Like, it's very, monotonous, and it's you're not really feeling like you're doing something. Breath of the Wild, you have potions, you have food, you have different things, and each of your ingredients that you find, first of all, everything is organically collected. Like, you go out and you pick an apple off a tree, or you kill a monster and pick up its guts, or whatever it is that you're going to do. If you want to fish, you dive into the water, swim up, and catch a fish. I mean, it's very much you go collect or get whatever it is you want to do. And then the game does not tell you anything about what to do with that. Like, there is no even tutorial that's like, here's how to cook. You walk up to the fire and you just throw shit in this fire. And if you throw the wrong things in, it burns the food and it comes out with dubious food or inedible food or crap that, doesn't heal you. If you put in, basically what it is when you're going through your inventory screen, and the inventory is a little clunky, you read each of the tooltips, and the tooltips will give you hints, not direct, like, use this with this to craft this potion, but like, this is found in a very hot region. This may protect you against heat, that kind of thing. And as you combine those elements together, you craft these elixirs or these foods, and based on your knowledge and based on your experience with it, the more you combine certain elements or certain ingredients, the stronger and more powerful the result ends up being. Like I said, to me, it's really one of the most well-made games I've seen in a long time for it. Nintendo polished the living crap out of this game to where it's beautiful. It runs, at least on the Wii U, it runs smoothly. It hasn't had any problems. And more than anything, it's just, again, the complete lack of handholding, the complete lack of it expecting you to go to point A, to go to point B, to go to point C. The older Zelda games, especially like Wind Waker, for example, Ocarina of Time, you had 3D elements and you could roam around the world, but you were very limited in what you were allowed to do. I mean, if you did not go kill this particular boss and get this particular power-up or this particular item or weapon, you just were blocked from being able to do it. And this game literally, I mean, your weapons break, so you do eventually have to get new weapons off of enemies or whatever, but like, you can pick up a freaking tree branch and run up and smack people in the head. And I mean, at no point in time is it like, the only restriction I found is you have to have the Master Sword, spoilers, to kill Ganon, as in every other freaking Zelda game known to man. But that's it. Like, that's the only thing in this game that I found that like prevents you from doing a specific thing. Anything else you want to do, go do it, and it'll let you do it. And if you fail, well, you just die horribly, and you try it again.
I used the pot lid as a shield.
Yeah. Oh, and also you find Koroks. My wife made this, by the way. There's 900 of these little bastards roamed around the world, and I found like 70 of them. So yeah, expect to run into these guys a lot, and they're very useful.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was a lot to take in. I had a lot of thoughts that I had at that point, and I have forgotten all of them. So that's fantastic.
Sorry, I got excited. It's a really awesome game.
I remembered what it was. One of the great things about Ultima 7 NPCs is it's raining. A woman in the house goes, "Who left these open?" And she goes outside and she shuts the shutters and she walks back in. And then in the morning she goes, "Boy, let's let some light in," and she opens the shutters, right? And then the guards, they come and they turn the street lights on at night and they turn them off during the day. And if you open the shutters when they should be closed, they'll run back out and open them. Like, God damn it. And you can really play with NPCs by doing stuff like that. I frankly have not seen another game do that. ever. Other than Ultima 7, that's the only game I've ever played where NPCs don't just have a schedule of where they should be at a certain time. They actually, respond to their environment in a way like I've seen NPCs respond to a monster, but I've not seen them respond to their environment in things of like shutters or weather and stuff like that. So seeing that stuff start to happen is very, very exciting for me. Although, again, it's almost 30 years, like, geez.
Yeah, they're still playing catch up.
And mustard.
Well, I like too some of the NPCs. Like you're wanting to go buy something from them. They're walking to dinner or whatever in the game, and they're like, "Leave me alone. My shop's not open. Go away." There's one quest where the person, you just can't talk to them until they get to their spot, and they keep going. Just wait till I get there. Wait till I get there. And like you said, this is not new. It's 30 years old technology, but I don't know, maybe it's we're now getting to the point where they're able to start putting that into the systems. I would love to see it in more open world games. I mean, the lack of linear and the lack of walling off in this game is just tremendous to me.
Oh, one other note about Zelda 2, you can actually turn off the entire HUD and you would actually understand everything that's happening in the game. If it's cold, Link will start shivering. If it's hot, he'll start sweating. If you're lost, you kind of look around, because if you talk to an NPC, they'll be like, they won't actually, okay, here's what's cool about it. When you're talking to an NPC and they're giving you directions, they won't put a marker on the map. There's some places where you need to actually physically look around. An NPC with like a brush on his head will be like, "Oh, you need to go to the mountain to the west, where there's like a valley going through it. Head down that path and go to the right across the bridge, and you'll find this location where you have this." And that's all you're given. And I like that. It goes back to like you physically looking around, going, "Where the hell? Oh, it's over there." Kind of a deal.
So of all the Breath of the Wild stuff, I had a choice, right? Everyone's talking. Well, firstly, I almost bought a fucking Switch, and I hate console exclusivity. Fuck that. I am so anti DLC, pre-release, pre-order bullshittery, bundled craptacular shit-assery. I'm so against all of that stuff. I almost bought a fucking Switch so I could play this game. I was that excited about it. So, as a longtime Ultima fan, I love that this is proving that there's room for games like this. And the elements that I have always considered to be the pinnacle of gaming elements, the top tier, the most important things, is really desired. The thing that's been missing, I think, over all these years is, the technology to do it and the competency to do it. John, you mentioned something really interesting. It doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't tell you where to go. It doesn't introduce what to do with all this shit. And you know what? You love it. How many games have you played that doesn't hold your hand, that doesn't explain something adequately, and you don't fucking understand it, and you hate it, and you rage quit because it's stupid? The difference between not holding your hand is entirely a function of how competent the game is. Not holding your hand is not always a good thing, especially when the game sucks. It's really encouraging to me that unless someone out there.
Also point out what David said about the UI, that the UI is so clean in this game. Like, we had something on the corner of our TV, and I didn't even know the UI was there because I didn't see it. There's heart containers on the corner, and there's a little thing that shows which current ability you're using, and that's it. Link runs around with a sword and shield and his bow strapped to his back. Like, you physically see what you have equipped. Yeah, you pop up a menu when you want to do certain things, but the rest of the time, it's just your screen. And everything else is whatever it is that you're doing at that particular moment. It's such a great immersion. God, I wish so many other games had it.
Just like Ultima 7.
Well, yeah, and one of the things, like David said, when you talk to the NPCs and they go, you're looking for this and it's over in this area. Well, you have what's called a slate, and it's basically the same thing as like a Wii U or a Switch thing in the game.
It's an Android phone.
It's an Android phone, and you basically take and you have a zoom on it where you can zoom out and look at things in the world, and you can put a marker, on your map that you can do. But it's you yourself marking that thing. And one of the things that's interesting is because it is a 3D environment, it's misleading sometimes. Like, you'll see it in your HUD, your view screen, and you'll mark it, and then you go look on your map, and it's like 4 zones over. Like, it's ridiculous, just how open the world is. And again, the game is not shy about going, hey, go over here, and if it kills you, too bad. The only limitation I found is a couple of zones. As David said, like if you get too cold, you start freezing to death. If you're too hot, you start sweating or burning, and you do have to find certain things to help combat that. But even that could be alleviated if you have enough hearts or you just eat a ton of food. I mean, the game does not require you to do it in a linear manner, which
Denial.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so unless someone out, and if anyone has an example, please let me know. And got 2 viewers right now. Hi, 2 viewers. Thanks for watching. If you guys out there have an example, or you watch this after the fact, from here to eternity, rusticdragon@gmail.com, send me examples. If anybody has an example of a game out there before Breath of the Wild, after Ultima 7, that successfully did no hand-holdy, minimal UI, open world sandbox play competently, let me know. Because as far as I know, this is the first game since Ultima 7 that has successfully done everything that, well, not everything, enough that I'm excited about an Ultima for me to, this is so Ultima-like to me that I'm, like I said, I would have been willing to buy, the hardware for it.
Kind of Dark Souls.
No,
It's not an open world.
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
an open world. Yeah, it's an open world, but it is a game that
you don't have the physics.
Yeah. But I'm just letting you know, it's one of those games that didn't hold your hand. It's like, here you go, figure it out.
Yeah, there's no discovery of physics.
Right.
There's no discovery of crafting. It's menu based. It's UI heavy.
It's straight murder combat simulator with discovery, with like you're still going down a maze, but in terms of open world, Zelda's probably the first for me.
David, is it storming where you are?
Yeah, it's kind of storming.
I just saw
There's a big thunderstorm going on out here.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of the stuff y'all talking about is what people are complaining about Soda. No home handy, open world, do what you want.
But Soda doesn't yet, and I say yet because I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't have the UI and the gameplay to back that up yet. That's the point I was trying to make earlier. When it's not handholdy, you have to have the game mechanics and the discoverability to back it up. If people don't understand how to do something and there's no way to figure it out, that's bad. If someone doesn't know how to do something and there's a lot of different ways to figure it out, that's fantastic.
That is. Oh, sorry.
Go for it, David.
No, I mean that is one of the other things too at the very beginning of Zelda is they give you the tools at the beginning and they show you examples of how to do it. And once you leave the dungeon of where you got the item, you have a way to apply your new knowledge on something. And that's it. It just says, here's this tool. It creates ice columns. What do you do with it? Oh, I can make a bridge out of it and go across something, or use it to climb up a waterfall. I have a new magnet tool. Okay, this is how you use it. You leave the dungeon. Oh, there seems to be a chest, made out of steel underneath the water. I lift it up, put it down. Yay! It teaches you by example, and that's what games are missing as well. Sort of like, I guess, how in Ultima 7 you learn how to bake bread by watching an NPC bake bread. You physically see the person do it, and then you apply that knowledge.
Bake bread, forge swords, you name it. It's all the same. It's just the thing that I'm just amazed by is why did it take damn near 30 years for us to have another game that does this? And personally, I blame the jump to 3D. I always have hated 3D, and people are like, no, if we don't jump to 3D, games will never get better, they'll never advance, blah, blah, blah. And every time a game jumped to 3D and didn't have these wonderful mechanics, I was always mad. And I was always like, there's so many things that you just don't get because you've jumped to 3D. These are the types of things that I'm talking about. And seeing it finally come to any semblance of fruition in the game gives me like the most gigantic Ultima boner. Like it's so fantastic. I need to find someone who has this game. And
My one gripe about that is the sole fact that it does not have a morality based. There's no choice. I mean, it is in its respect a very linear story. It's just how they created the world is so open. If they could meld that with the Ultima style gameplay of morality choices, your decisions have an effect on the outcome. God, I would so back that game in a heartbeat.
One thing that I'm curious about, I have not watched videos nor have I played. Zelda has never been strong in dialogue, in my opinion. It's very, I talk to this person, I say their line, I get what I need, I go over here. There's not any back and forth thing. Is there in this game, like, do you do anything other than just walk up to an NPC and press A? Do you actually get responses?
You still talk to them. They do have voice acting, and some of them are pretty cool. But you just walk up and you press A. You do have like a yes or no option sometimes, but that's about it.
So it's very traditionally Zelda in that.
Very very traditional Zelda in that aspect. You don't have like a narrative or a dialogue option. It's like you are Link. You're not making a hero that's based off of you. You are, even though that's what Link was supposed to be. You have a history. You have a story. You have journals of your father, and all that stuff of what happened in the game. So
it's a running joke in the game of how little Link talks. The NPCs comment on it, and you're just a man of no words and that kind of thing. But it's
so I mean, and that's okay. Not all role-playing games have to be I'm defining the role. If you are playing a role, it's a role-playing game. I mean, that's just because you didn't define the role doesn't mean it's not a role-playing game. So while I like immersive conversation as much as possible and the option to call someone a shit ass, it's okay to not have that. That's not a hard and fast requirement for me in a game. So David and John has played this. I know Frank has not played it. Adam and Seth, have you guys had any hands-on experience with it?
I've been resisting due to needing to get the house ready for future baby. And also I don't have a Wii U or a Switch, and like you, I'm not a console fan. So I'm trying to hold off, but I get the feeling I'm going to cave someday.
Getting the house ready for time baby.
Oh, you can snowboard with your shield.
You could snowboard. You could also ride on the back of a sand seal and surf through sand. It's really awesome.
Yeah, so like, what's some of the weirdest shit you guys have done so far?
Okay, I'm going to possibly spoil one shrine for some people. There is an island where you get to that takes away all of your items, and you're only given the items that you find or kill monsters there. And there's several battles that you're massively outclassed because you're naked and have like a stick. So yeah, I've learned to run up on things and throw bombs and to throw fire. And one of the best things is they have explosive barrels that you can stasis lock with time, and then you start bashing on it. And as soon as the stasis breaks, it flies wherever it's going to go with the kinetic energy, and it explodes in their face. And it's tremendous once you actually start learning how to do that.
I made a raft into a lighter than air device and made it drop on some enemies.
That's fantastic. So even John, you're talking about, you get naked and you lose all your items. It's still training you to use the game.
Yeah. Plus, like, for example, there's a common enemy that runs around the moblins on the back of horses. So you're out adventuring and they start riding up on you. Well, you can use one of your ability stasis to lock the guy in place, and his horse runs off without him. And next thing you know, it breaks and he falls to the ground, and of course you can kill him from there. It's just the amount of physics in the world is just phenomenal. And of course, sometimes it screws up if you're fighting on a mountainside and you kill your enemy, and his body goes flying off the cliff, and all of his goodies go flying off, and you lose them. It makes you really pay attention to the placement of the world and yourself. It's really cool.
So I have two questions. You can take these in whatever order you want. So has anybody discovered one particular technique that's just so broken, overpowered yet? And the other question is, Richard Garriott used to famously say, and this is something that I live my design through. I have totally made these words my guiding principles for almost everything I do. I don't start with the story and make a game to tell the story. I start with the simulation and design the story to show off my world. I'm paraphrasing, but basically, let's make the world sim as cool as we can, and then write the story that forces the player to experience all that shit so they don't miss it. And that it's been the way that he's told stories and written games for the larger part of his of the Ultimate series. It's would you say it's fair that Nintendo took this approach? I mean, are you seeing any of that?
To answer your first question, yes. When I said I was able to go to the final boss with the pot lid as my shield, you can actually deflect all of the big boss's laser beams with that shield if you time it perfectly. So yes, there is an overpowered technique, but you got to be really good at it. And in terms of storytelling, no, not necessarily. They just they pretty much have 4 points on the map. You go to all 4 of those, complete those bits, and then you go to the boss. Or you can skip those 4 bits and go straight to the boss. But they don't really push a major narrative.
I'm ready.
I'd agree with David on that. I mean, the narrative, it's Zelda. I mean, you're building up to kill Ganon because he's always the end boss. I do think, though, if you do just those 4 things, like you said, and go straight to the boss, you miss a tremendous amount of the world. There was a lot of creativity and effort put into the NPCs, put into side quests, put into the different stories and things that you have in the world. To your first question, though, yeah, no, there's really not an OP thing unless you, as David said, once you get more skilled at the game, there are little tricks and things that you can do. Like you can use those abilities. For example, stasis is tremendously powerful to freeze your enemies in place and to kind of wail on them. Magnesis, where you can pick up or swing metal objects around or even move certain environmental areas around to deflect for combat. It's more just as you get used to the game. One of the things that was a gripe at the beginning is your combat weapons break, like you sneeze on them and they break. As you get better in the game and as you kill better enemies, you get more and more powerful weapons. But even the Master Sword has a limitation to where it breaks. Like you can only use it for so long, and then it loses power, and you have to wait a timed interval before it resets into your bag. And that was a little artificial to me. But I mean, I can see why they did it to prevent people from just running around wailing on everything with just one weapon at that point.
But there is a broken technique. It's the shield reflect.
The shield reflect is awesome if you can master it.
I could defeat, like, there's bosses that's supposed to one-shot you with, if you have like 12 hearts, a blast from them would kill you, and I can face 2 at the same time and just deflect with, like, the first pot lid I found.
Note to self: Hobloth 4 pot lids. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm trying to think of some other open world, simulation type games that I've played. The first one, the only one that's really coming to mind is Scribblenauts. They basically built an entire system of shit that interacts with each other, and they let you figure puzzles out by putting things together. But there was a cheat where basically the objective of every level of Scribblenauts is to get this particular star to touch your character or something. You have to get this star, and you try all these various things to get it. And then you write the name of the item that you want to summon. You can summon a black hole or death or a spoon, basically anything you can imagine. You write it and it'll appear, and it will behave as you'd expect. But if you take a slot or a cash register, I believe it is, and you put handcuffs in it, the star will suck right to it every time. Doesn't matter. Like, it's a bug in the game. You can win literally every level by attaching handcuffs to a cash register. It's broken. There's always going to be that. Well,
like diapers in Ultima 7.
Like diapers in Ultima 7. Is it reasonable to say that there's no such thing as a perfect system? Do we have a perfect system yet so far? I can't imagine.
For example, if you do want to talk about OPness, food in Zelda, you can be mid-boss fight with like a quarter of a health left, eat a piece of food and go back to full health. And there's no, like, you're in a paused menu, there's no threat of the monster killing you or damage you. So that is probably one of the I guess, hacks to the game, so to speak.
Sorry, now I'm reading about diapers in Ultima 7. Getting excited here. So if memory serves, you just hit someone with a diaper and they always run away, right?
Yeah, if I recall, they run around in Terror, which gives you, and they like drop their weapons and stuff, and then that gives you a chance to just slaughter them.
That's fantastic. Well, I know what I'm bringing to Hellbloth 4. David's like, no.
Baby powder and diaper for David. There you go.
I will be
David, you're
well
gonna have-
armed.
David, you're going to have your own babies by then. You'll have your own diaper generator. No response. So
Maybe.
no one has to know that it's only Nutella. So hearkening back to the very beginning of the conversation, I think I just thought of a nice Valor test for Hobloth 4. Also known as a double dog dare. No thoughts. Okay. So no one looks remotely amused right now. I am amused at how unamused everybody looks. Like Adam is so unamused right now. Like I just want to hug him. He's not frozen, is he?
Oh, he's frozen.
Oh, okay. Adam is not unamused. Okay, I was amused by how frozen amused Adam is. Oh well. Let it go. Okay. Reining this back in. Yeah, so like can you guys think of any other games that have been remotely open worldy? Like David mentioned Dark Souls. I mean, that's open worldy in some ways. Skyrim and Witcher and stuff are decent contenders, but they're missing the interactivity element, in my opinion.
Even Witcher lacks some of the open world stuff. Like I can't climb buildings and mountains, and I mean you have a very linear map to where you can and can't go. I mean, the closest would probably be the Oblivion and Skyrim games, except for again from a crafting standpoint, it's very handheld. Like everything drags you through it. The closest crafting wise I thought was probably the old Kingdoms of Amalur game, to where you could combine to just make just about anything that was overpowered in the game. But yeah, this is the first one from the Ultimate games I found that is a truly open world sandbox, kick you in the butt, and just hey, go out and defeat the bad guy.
So okay, so we've got Ultima, right? Ultima is its own thing. It's always been its own thing. It's always this new game comes out, and Roy's like, yeah, but can you bake bread? That's the quintessential Ultima question. Can you bake bread? And at one point, there was some Ultima 9 developer who said Ultima's not about baking bread, and we all fucking cut his head off because he was completely wrong. So like every single time a new game comes out, we compare it to every other franchise. And it's really interesting to see Legend of Zelda doing what I absolutely have no problem saying are very Ultima elements. I feel like, Ultima is the game to be comparing this to. David, can you imagine what happens if Final Fantasy does this?
Oh, dude, that shit a fucking brick. I mean, they've all been linear. Like even the open world map, it's like you need to do this to get this bridge, to access this location, to get to this port, to kill these pirates, to get this ship, to go to Elfland, to go ahead and talk about this, to get Matoya's crystal eye. But it's still like the game only opens up at the end when you get your airship. That's the only time it's quote unquote open world. So I can't see. Final Fantasy is a narrative, not an open world simulation. Ultima, like even Ultima 4, on the NES blew my damn mind, because every single time I chose like the wrong answer to get honor, I end up being like, I don't know, compassionate. I'm in Britannia instead of Trinsic. I'm like, where the hell am I? Oh, I'm so confused. And you just go out and start adventuring all over the place. And I'd have to reset the game because paladins were overpowered. And I wanted to be a paladin.
Right. So Legend of Zelda is, if you compare Final Fantasy 1 to the original Legend of Zelda is totally way more open world than the original Final Fantasy. I think that's totally fair to say, being a genuine RPG and an action adventure fighting game. So it kind of makes sense for Zelda to evolve into basically Ultima. it would be interesting to see if Final Fantasy does that. But then it poses the philosophical question: is Breath of the Wild the final form? Is Ultima 7 the pinnacle? Is Breath of the Wild, is that the pinnacle of what games can and should be? That's
No.
an interesting. You don't think so?
No, I mean, Ultima 7, yes. Where Zelda is right now, this is a stepping stone for them. I think in the next one they'll reiterate it and start, refining it some more. But I think the objective is to get to Ultima 7, but in a 3D environment. No, I think that's what we're all striving for, or what we want.
Yeah, that's what my question is. Is that amount of simulation and interactivity and freedom, is that really, is that what the ultimate goal of games should be? It'd be interesting, I'm not a PvP person, but I would really be interested in seeing some PvP with this level of interactivity, this level of sandboxiness. Of course, you have to run into pot lids and things that are generally overpowered, but that seems interesting to me. And of course, there'll generally always be one technique that's pretty good. And man, Seth mentioned Ultima 7 and VR. Like, God, somebody please just make Ultima 7 with voxels already, please. Like, I want to rotate, I want to zoom, I want to. There was a Twitter conversation the other day. I posted the print that I had made of the Ultima 5 poster, or Ultima 5 box artwork, and it led to a Twitter conversation where, I can't remember how it happened or who it was off the top of my head, but basically it led to me saying, give me Ultima 7 just 10 times bigger and I'll never leave the house, right? That all I want is the Ultima 7 engine to fill up my badass computer, right? That's just take modern hardware and just don't make it more complex. Don't make it any different. Just make it fucking bigger. Can I have that, please? That's what I want. Although I do want to play Breath of the Wild. And so, David, you think that this is totally not going to be... you think this is just the first toe dip into this type of interactivity for Nintendo? Do you think that they're going to come and be... Totally, I think that if Nintendo makes no more games, I think that anybody who's never played Ultima will probably remember Breath of the Wild as one of the best fucking games on the planet, just because it has all those Ultima-like elements. And those who have played Ultima 7, they're like, well, yeah, it's it just does what Ultima did, right? Do you think that if Nintendo really does more games like this and they do it well and they become the modern day Origin systems for games like this, do you think that Origin is going to end up being overshadowed by that? And, 100, 200 years from now, what do you think? Philosophical questions.
I mean, there's a lot of people who've never heard of the word Ultima, so it's sort of already there, kind of, which is sad.
Yes, dudes.
Like I said, if they would ever put the moral choices into their games, I think they would be phenomenal. Again, Nintendo's done this before. I mean, with Link to the Past, with the old Ocarina of Time games, I mean, they did push the boundaries of consoles as to what was expected. Like, when you played Link to the Past, you didn't have the over-the-top 3D style world where you had so much interactivity. They just did a really great job with this particular game. I would love to see other game manufacturers learn from that example. Again, having the open world plus the narrative story-based elements would just sell it over the top.
Just start porting to PC for me, Nintendo. Please. Welcome, Unseen, by the way. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see everyone. I just got home from work. It's good to see everyone.
Welcome home. It's good to see you, too. We have mentioned Festival of the Silver Serpent at least 3 or 4 times, so it's good to have you here.
And those invitations will be going out tomorrow morning.
Yay! So, welcome to the chat. Would you mind taking a moment to introduce yourself to our wonderful 2 viewers out there in YouTube land?
Absolutely. So I'm Joseph Drayson, known as Unseen Dragon to most people, and I have been coming to the Dragon Meet since near the beginning. And I enjoy meeting everyone, hanging out. I miss you guys when I'm not talking to you, when we're not hanging out, and I get the great privilege of once or twice a year seeing everyone when we get together at one of our gatherings.
It's true. You're pretty much a lifer.
Yes. So, and I guess I should say I started playing Ultima when I was probably, I can't exactly remember, but I was probably 8 or 9. But I actually went probably 20 years without doing much to do with Ultima, and it was actually, you know, I still talked about it. Like I remember when Ultima 9 came out, I was dating my wife, but it was actually when Soda came out that I kind of, and some of the community reform, that I kind of got back in touch with it. But it had been a good 10 years that I hadn't really done anything Ultima related. So.
Totally. If memory serves, you're in the group who thinks that 5 is the best.
So yeah, 5 was my first one really playing it on the Apple II Plus, and so the first one's always special. Though I did play, and again, there's one of my memory things I can't remember. I played Ultima 3 on the Mac, which I'm actually replaying right now with my son. And so 3 and 5 have special places. But that's probably mostly because they were my first experience.
Yeah.
5 was the 4th Ultima I played, and I also think it's the best.
Yeah, I mean, just it had. I didn't play 4 till much later, so I didn't have that experience. But it was the first game I played, going kind of with the topic you're talking about, that felt like a really living, breathing world that had in-depth characters and a lot to it, and seemed to have some existence outside myself. And it was just so big. There was so much to do.
I was 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 5. And that 5 happened like within the last year or two. Interestingly enough, I'd fired up 5 once or twice, but never really devoted the time. And I finally played it within the last year or two. And part of me didn't want to play it because I was going to be like, this is going to suck because I didn't play it as a kid. I'm going to hate it, blah, blah, blah. And I still loved it. It was like, I remember tweeting after I'd finished it, I understand people's obsession with 5 now. It was really good, really solid. And while I didn't play it as a kid when that was the best thing out there, I totally could understand the reaction of this is the best thing out there. I have a hard time putting myself in the shoes of thinking that Ultima 1 and 2 are the best things out there. I just never been able to make that leap, but I totally understood people's obsession with 5 after getting through it. And what was really neat for me was noticing how much of the vestigial things made it into 6. Like all the dead tree graphics that are from 5 that you can't actually do anything with in 6. Like you can search these hollow tree stumps in 5, and there's a lot of those very similar looking hollow tree stumps in 6 that don't do shit. Like, that's where they're from. It was really interesting. It was like listening to the Final Fantasy V soundtrack after listening to 4 and 6 your whole life and going, oh, that's a total perfect combination of the two. Very satisfying.
Yeah, what's interesting in 5, and you know, again, going to the Zelda conversation, people remember in Zelda 1 where every wall you're supposed to bomb is. I remember, if I were to go back and play 5, I still remember like the stump in Minot you search. Spoilers. For skull keys and which chests and which doors, and like I still remember where everything is and which barrel. And I've never had that experience with a game where I just kind of remember everything.
It's like coming home. It's just this wonderful sense of familiarity that you go in there and everything is where it belongs and it's where you remember it, and it's just fantastic. I've mentioned this on several Dragons meets, but my favorite, wow, I just found that thing, is always going to be Ultima 7 west of Bee Cave. You just walk to where the mountains of Bee Cave meets the shore, northwest of where Saramet is fishing, and there are 2 rocks stacked on each other, and there's an invisibility ring in between them for no fucking reason. That's always been my favorite Ultima moment was, hey, I'm going to walk. Oh, I guess I can't go this way. Hey, those rocks look peculiar. Hey, free thing. So it just, that always is just always going to be a watershed moment in gaming for me. It was finding that damn invisibility ring. Yeah. Stumps.
And Argo says hi to everyone.
Hi, dog. Oh my God. Oh yeah. That's the dog that Alex was like crying over, and because it's so cute. Alex is
Pretty ridiculous.
So much. Oh my God. It's like a brown Wyatt. It's a chocolate Wyatt. Wyatt being Casey's dog, who looks like that but is gray. Hi, dog. Oh, look at that dog. I'm very happy right now.
Well, he will get lots of petting in just over a month.
Oh yeah. I forgot you had that dog. So Alex is not going to participate in the event. She's going to pet the dog, and she will not stop petting the dog until it's time to leave. At which point you will have to separate her from the dog so we can go home without them.
Without the dog. Yes, my kids would quite miss it if he wasn't here.
So talking about you having only played Ultima 5 recently, what are some things, this is one of my favorite topics, but what are some things people feel like you can't really experience anymore because you didn't play it at the time? So like in Ultima 3, when all the characters die, it saves the game automatically, and your character's all dead. You have to go create new characters, maybe try to resurrect your old characters. But there's an instant that when I was a kid, I would hear the drive boot up, and I would reach out and I'd just flip the switch to disengage the drive so it wouldn't be able to save over my characters and have them be dead. And then I'd spend the next 5, 10, 15 minutes rebooting the computer. And that's not an experience you get anymore. You play it on GOG. If it goes to save, it just does it like that. And I'm just wondering, what other experiences do people that come to mind?
I have thoughts on that. Well, the first one is sad and obvious. The second one is not so sad and obvious. The first one is, I just don't fucking have time. I don't have time to play. I'm not in the mental state to struggle. I have the internet. It's right there. I'm so used to getting instant gratification. I don't have the patience that I did when I was a kid. I don't have the time that I did when I was a kid. I don't have the mindset that I did when I was a kid. So I'm missing it's not as rewarding to play the game anymore because I'm not struggling with it, because it's so easy to get the fucking answer. And unless you have the boxes, you're not reading the books, you're not lovingly, thumbing the books, you're not, my Ultima 6 compendium is right here. This is my Ultima 6, my original Ultima 6 box here. Look at that fantastic condition that it's in. This is my Ultima 6 compendium, autographed by Lord British. And I mean, look at it. It's fucking falling apart. I took this to school with me in junior high. I took this everywhere. I read it front to back over and over and over and over. I knew every page of this inside and out. Aside from Ultima 7, I haven't done that with a game since, and I certainly didn't do that with Ultima 5. And, you just, it's a type of immersion that I don't get anymore. But in terms of the other thing that's a little less sad, actually it's much less sad. This is cute. My favorite memory, like there was a sound that I heard when I was playing Ultima 6 sometime within the last 5 or 10 years. When you play Ultima 6, when I first played Ultima 6, it was on a 386 without a sound card, and it was just PC speaker sound effects. So, you target, you hit, and if you miss, it goes, and if you hit, it goes, and there's these trickly water sound effects that play when you're by a river or a water wheel, and all those little PC speaker sounds. And then later when we got a 486 DX4 100, and we had a sound card. and I could hear the MIDI music for the first time, and that was fantastic. But for me, that sound of the PC speaker water in Ultima 6, that trickling water sound. I was playing Ultima 6 and I was just walking around and I heard that, and just, it was like a gut punch for an instant. I was, sitting in front of this off-white colored 386 computer, smell of my mom's cigarette in the background, the paneling on the walls. I was a kid again. It took me back so hard, just that trickling PC speaker sound. And yeah, I don't know if that's really a valid thing that you don't get if you play it these days, but something about that loud PC speaker sound. The speakers are over here, but that sound is blaring from that chip on the board, in the computer itself.
Yeah, well, just like any of those PC speaker sound effects, you're not going to hear them anymore. GOG will.
They simulate them.
Well, they can, but is it going to, or is it going to just, or I'm just wondering, is there, because I know some Ultimas, they do more advanced sound, or they fall back on PC sound. Is Ultima 6 only the PC speaker sound?
So I know that the sound effects, like the mists and the hit and the spell casting sound, was PC speaker, at least on my PC.
Okay.
Now it comes through the speakers when I emulate.
Okay, but it is the same sound. All right.
Yeah, I think GOG emulates the PC speaker, actually. But it was enough to take me back. It just wasn't coming from my tower, or actually at the time it was not even a tower, it was laying down. I missed that.
Speaking of like older manuals, I still have this stuff. I always thought that this image was the most badass thing ever when I was a kid. For the Ultima 4 NES.
Oh yeah.
And I was always confused by the setting of this picture. Have the rest set an in.
Got to stop the game. Oh yeah, something you don't experience anymore. Having to fucking reset your computer to exit the game. That's something you don't experience anymore. Having to start Ultima 7, hitting F8 while my computer's booting, hitting N and N, N, Y, N, N, enter to selectively disable all the shit that I don't need and install the mouse only so I can have enough memory to play Ultima 7. That's something I don't experience anymore. Having your computer constantly crash in Ultima 9. No, you can still do that. This too, it can be.
Mine worked fine. I would say one thing, and this is a little different than talking about sound, is I remember when I played games, particularly role-playing games when I was young, like, I didn't know that there was an end to the world. Like, the game seemed almost infinite to some degree. And like now when I play a game, even when they're really well done, I know there's it's just a facade. Like, I know there's an edge to the world. And when I was young, it's like, I didn't really have that. Like, I thought like it could be infinite.
That's interesting. I spent so many years of my life looking at a game saying, this isn't as good as Ultima. It is true. You do, you do know it's a simulation. Sometimes I find that when I play games, I ask myself, what's the point? Sometimes I just get sick of playing and like, why am I even doing this? I got to get back to work. There is a game developer whose name I can't remember, and I don't even remember what company he works for, who basically said, I make games. I don't fucking have time to play them. When someone asked him what his favorite games were. And I feel like that now. Hobloth is sort of a game. Cookbook it's not a game, but it's creating. It's like I don't have time to play when I'm creating. That being said, I have been making myself play an hour or two of video games a week lately to actively get some R&R. I need to relax, to fight burnout. Relatedly, I just played a game that I got for 49 cents that on Steam called Out There Somewhere. It was a fun little game that took almost about an hour to beat. It was really good. So those of you who want to play a little Portal-like platformer with a teleporter gun, it's really fun. Out there somewhere, you should get it. Adam, you said you bought that based on my recommendation. Have you played it?
I haven't had time yet. I'm in a similar place as far as having time to play games.
Yeah, looking forward to Dark Unknown. You released a beta recently, or you're going to?
I released the demo a couple days ago, and then released the first bug-fixed version of that 2 days ago, and am working through the next set of bugs that have been reported to me from someone playing the demo.
So how many bugs did you create fixing the first bugs?
I don't think I haven't found any yet from fixing the first bugs before, but some of the bugs from this were from me refactoring something a little while ago. And the game is at this point sufficiently complicated that I missed some of the ramifications.
Yeah, I believe it. And that just means I'm excited even more about your game. David, did you play it yet?
Not yet. I do have it installed, but I too busy unpacking and trying to set up this place.
Yeah, I understand. So David just moved. For those 3 viewers out there on YouTube land, congratulations, David, on getting a house. You are the youngest son of a bitch here, but you have a house. So props to you for that. That's fantastic. How's the cat liking it?
The cat didn't eat for the first day and a half because it was just freaked out, but it's pretty good. Now he's constantly running up and down the stairs. And speak of the devil, hold on.
I wish it'd be so awesome if he came back with like a gorilla or something.
It's animal show and tell.
Yeah, it's like he comes back with like, oh, kitty. Hello, cat. Oh. Look at that stripe. Look at that perfect tuxedo. That's adorable.
I fear I need to run, but I will catch everyone next Dragonsmeet.
Excellent. Thanks for stopping in. I'm glad you made it. Fantastic to see you. Do you want to say a closing toast before you go, or do you just want to run for it?
Closing toast. Hadn't thought of anything. Open worlds.
Definitely. To open worlds, being in the public eye conversation is something valuable. Hopefully we get more of them. And I am out of beverage. Have a good night. Well, we've got about 7 more minutes before we do move on to regular closing toasts. Again, 3 viewers out there, if you want to contribute to this conversation in any way, send me an email, rusticdragon@gmail.com. I will get a notification. I'll pull that email up, and I will read whatever you say within reason. Yeah, I wonder, should I throw it out there that I would read anything that someone says? But no, anybody, if you want to contribute to the conversation, rusticdragon@gmail.com. It's the single best way to get a hold of me. I don't read the comments on the YouTube videos. I don't check any live chats. rusticdragon@gmail.com. While you're watching, after you're watching, doesn't matter. Send me an email. I will be happy to read your comments on air, or just consider them if you don't want me to read them. But those of you out there that are watching, thank you for watching. So yeah, open world gaming, Valor. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. You mentioned wanting to get some. It'd be interesting to see that moral element, that that human moral virtue, whatever element in a Zelda game. That seems to be the big piece that's missing, making Breath of the Wild, pretty much a complete Ultima, so to speak. How would you imagine that working, on a console? Like, what would work for you? Like, what would not make that not work for you? I'm curious if you have any thoughts about that. No idea. So definitely not the BioWare style where you have this wheel of responses where what you say actually has nothing to do with the things you choose. Hopefully we cannot have that.
Well, Dragon Age Origins was pretty cool.
Origins was pretty cool. the other day, I don't remember who, someone got me on a rant about Dragon Age 2 at work the other day, and I just, God damn it. And I was just like, I just played this giant snark fest on wheels, like on rails. Like, that is Dragon Age 2. It's a shitty snark fest on rails. Like, no one delivers a line with a straight face. Everything's fucking snarky.
Everybody's doing backflips, you know, behind the scene, and everybody's just wiggling around instead of having the camera actually show up to the person's face. And again, since they actually had low production value on the ending of the game in terms of how they actually deliver the ending, you had lots of options. You know, like, did you spill the blood on Andraste's ashes, or did you do this? Did you know, did Liliana go ahead and attack you because was she in your party when you did that? You know, stuff like that. You know, choices actually mattered in that game.
I will say the one thing that I did that I'm particularly fond of from Dragon Age 2, Andraste's tits. That's probably my favorite thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's about the only thing that came from it that I particularly enjoy. Everything else, just flush it down the fucking toilet while I do it.
Well, I don't know. Adam, Frank.
I got a question.
Yeah.
You
go.
say, I swear I heard you all say that Zelda's always end with the same boss. Is that what you said, or is it different one? Is it?
It's always
generally.
Ganon.
I got the impression of that. Yes?
It's always Ganon in some form or fashion. Yeah.
I don't know.
Most of them.
I don't know. The thing that sets me apart with the console and the PC is always the input, the keyboard. The keyboards and the gamepads always make it for me. The handheld controller, I just don't thrive on that. But onward. Rustic.
Hey, I'm making a drink.
Adam, say something.
Talking about controllers.
Mr. Drayson, say something.
I can say something else about the sound. When I started, it was in 1988 with the Tandy 1000, and Tandy sound had the best sound out there at the time. So I was spoiled with the Ultima 5 when I started because it had great sound, other than just a PC speaker.
Yeah, I think the Amiga version, or that may have actually started with 6, had very nice sound. But I played 5 originally on an Apple II Plus with a Mockingbird, which was a now probably 40-year-old sound card. So I actually had very nice MIDI music.
Yep.
I will say Ultima 7 and Wing Commander 2 were my first forays into sound cards. Just the Guardian's voice booming out of the speakers scared the crap out of me the first time I booted up Ultima 7. Avatar! Yeah, it was like, holy crap, the computer's talking to me now. And then like Wing Commander 2, because I played the first one with the PC, like, you know, Joseph and Seth were talking about, with just a little bleep, 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 versus like hearing the MIDI music and hearing the sound effects of the missiles and the lasers. And Origin, I mean, again, going back to how great the games were, I mean, they really kind of prompted you to keep your computer upgraded for their games, because again, sound card for their games. My first CD-ROM drive was for Wing Commander 3 because, again, it shipped on CD-ROM and I had to play that game. So,
Well, actually, those the Origin games, particularly the Wing Commander series. I mean, I remember with Wing Commander 1, the intro to it was a symphony orchestra playing the music. Like, they made a big deal out of investing a lot of effort into the
does
sound.
anybody remember the Origin FX screensaver for
I
DOS?
have it.
Yeah, that you could, if you had Ultima 6 and you had Wing Commander, I mean, it would play bits of the MIDI music for it, and along with the screen effects. I mean, it was phenomenal. They should have that for Windows, in my opinion. But.
Best screensaver ever. All right, I am back. Thank you for the hiatus. I wanted a genuine alcoholic drink this time. I have not had a genuine alcoholic drink for Dragonsmeet since they've come back. I used to always have beer. Now I actually have a drink. I made myself a nice orange sour. I'm very happy.
You know, have yesterday's unfinished cold coffee.
Not yesterday's unfinished cold coffee. I mean, that's the state that I'm in right now. I've officially become an artist. It's like, yesterday's cold coffee is my drink of choice because if I drink booze, I'm going to sleep. But that being said, so Seth, before he took off, he toasted to the return of open world gaming, and I'm very, 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 very emphatically for that. Frank, No, I'm going to make you go last because it'll be your first closing toast with us. Mr. Hosey, how about you? Would you like to lead us with a closing toast?
Yeah, to, again, Open World Gaming, to the Festival of the Silver Serpent that we're all looking forward to, and to great friends.
Absolutely. Totally to the
Here.
Festival of the Silver Serpent. Yeah. All right, I got to let the cat out. He wants to closing toast with us. Come on, cat. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on, cat.
I got a mirror in the background.
There you are.
So, David, where'd you move to?
Woodstock. Anyway, back to the toast.
All right. Cat, do you want to give us a closing toast? God, you're fat. Jesus Christ. All right. So, this is for Lauren. I am a cat. Cat, cat, cat. Look, cat. Look, it's you. I'm typing. Sorry. I'm excited. David, do you have a closing toast for us?
I mean, everybody keeps on saying back to open worlds, but I guess a toast to Ultima 7 for setting the standard.
To Ultima 7. What's that?
What the hell?
All right. Adam?
Say to
Yeah.
a new look and new perspectives on some virtues.
Indeed. I just want to say something about that really quickly. The Spam Humbug podcast has been doing meditations on virtues for a while now, and I think they're doing them again and revisiting them. It's really fun to finally get to do that myself, and I've been listening to some of the ones that they do. So absolutely, I don't think you could ever over meditate on the virtues. So totally to virtue and valiant discussions. Yeah. Unseen.
Mine will be a little selfish. It's good to see everyone again, and I haven't been on one of these in far too long. I apologize. My life has been incredibly busy and will continue to be for the next month till after the festival. But it's good to see everyone again.
I totally agree. To seeing your lovely face again.
Now with more beard.
Yes, Kat. Kat, you don't eat for an hour and a half. Stop. Every night. This is the way it goes. Frank, I think you understand what we're going at for here, so let's have your closing toast.
Sorry about that. Well, I'm glad to be back with you all, and I hope to see you all in May, which all things go right now, and to Open Gaming and the Virtues.
Absolutely. To everything that you just said.
That's right.
So those of you out there watching, those 4 viewers, as I always mention, you're free to email rusticdragon@gmail.com. If you get your closing toast in within the next minute or two, I will read it for you, but you probably won't, and that's okay. We may end up ending a little early tonight. So before I say my closing toast, I want to thank everybody out there who supports the Hearth of Britannia, be it spiritually, be it emotionally, be it just giving encouragement, giving on Patreon. Thank you, Patreon backers. Thank you, longtime friends of the Hearth. Thank you, family thank you, family. Okay, how do I say this? Thank you, friends of the Hearth's family of the friends of the Hearth. Basically, thank you, family members who are understanding when people come to these crazy events, that you don't really understand. Note that you're always welcome at the Hearth. You always have a home at the Hearth of Britannia, and know that, we would love to meet you. You stay home people while your loved ones come and rabble with us. But yeah, to the return of open world gaming, to the continuation of Dragonsmeets, and to me making this the first and only unlisted Dragonsmeet I've ever had as soon as we're done here, because I don't generally want to have negative comments said by me terribly publicly accessible on the internet. So to the first unlisted Dragonsmeet after this is over, thank you for being a part of it. And with that, I believe we should start our after rabble. So unless everybody has anything to say at the last minute, like David likes to sometimes slip in, I'm Rustic Dragon. This has been a Hearth of Britannia Dragonsmeet, and I will see you next time.
Pornhub has a panda category.